So, I don't know about you, but I subscribe to a bunch of YouTube channels with artists who show you how they make their really cool drawings. And then I watch the videos and I try to make really cool drawings myself, and it does not turn out the same way. So, that is kind of what inspired this video because over the years, have bought a bunch of books and, as I said, watched a bunch of videos about drawing, wanting to bring a little visual material to my RPG play. And this video is going to highlight three books that I have that have really helped me the most in terms of developing my skills at making a passably okay drawing of an environment. And along the way, I'm going to talk about why I think an environment is so important. I've discussed this in a zillion videos already. I discuss it in my book, but I think adding the visual dimension that you create along the way can really enhance gameplay. So we're going to take a look at those three books, and then we're going to take a look at a series of supporting materials that you can use with some random tables to give a little story to the drawings that you're going to be creating. Okay, so is this the greatest drawing in the world? No, and it's not even the greatest drawing that I've done lately, but I found myself getting a little bit nervous on camera, oddly, and I've been practicing. I've been practicing my monsters and my coastlines a little bit, and just using some of the same elements, these kind of mysterious trees. I've done better on those lately than these would indicate. But that's kind of what drawing is. You do some practice. This was something I had done before. See, these trees are better. I like the ghost there. I think the monster I'm improving on. And I'll just show you, this was some lettering that I've been practicing. And this was different type of monster and kind of a different sort of coastal area. And then I think this is my favorite of the recent ones I've done. The trees came out good. I really like these mountains, and all that sort of really worked well. So this one I think was pretty good. So to develop these skills, as I said, I watch videos and I purchase books. And in this video, I said it was three books. It's actually four books I'm going to show you that I have purchased that are four of many I've purchased. But these are the four that I think have helped me the most. And I'm going to go in order of complexity, I guess. And then I will tell you, if you're just going to get one of them, which one I recommend. And then we'll turn to the supplements that I think can go paired with any drawings you do to allow yourself a little bit of a backstory about something if you're going to put one of your characters into this environment, or just think about the environment as a place in which you might play. My first recommendation is a classic book from 1972 and one of a series of books by this artist, Ed Emberley. The Make a World book, Learn to Draw the Ed Emberley Way, is not based in RPG at all, but it gives you a real range of things that you can draw, and it does so by kind of, I guess you'd call it, iterative model, where you start out with a simple shape like this, a couple of rectangles, and gradually add things and end up in this case with a Jeep here. And then he'll show you how to make that Jeep into a snowplow, and then even give it a flat tire, for example. And some of it is a little bit dated, like you've got the VW bug that you're drawing in specific, and an ambulance that you can draw. Again, it's not grounded in fantasy, but you can sort of pick and choose, obviously, among these things. And even if you're not using like a racing car in your fantasy map, for example, just following along and doing the drawings, I think, repeatedly can give you confidence and sort of build up the skill to do it. And I think one of the problems that I have always encountered when, and trying to draw is the relationship between the speed of doing something, like where it kind of feels natural, like you feel like you want to go quickly, and then having it actually work out. And I found that practicing on these drawings gave me enough confidence to enhance the relationship between the speed and the skill, because I think to a certain extent you have to kind of move along in the drawing for it to feel natural. But if you are not comfortable enough with where you're going, then you end up, at least I end up, with something that doesn't really look very representational. So we've got a stagecoach here and a circus wagon, and then we move into some sea creatures. These were my first little sea creatures that I was drawing in some of my maps. That those give a lot, I think, of flavor to things. And you can see here we've got dogs and birds and owls. Very simple, but kind of sweet and very thorough. There's just a lot. There's a lot in here. You could even draw like a little archer here, and putting something like that in the middle of a forest in a map that you're drawing can signal a lot and create a lot of feeling and thought into the environment. We get inside stuff, he says here. So there's lamps, and there's a sewing machine, and even a waste paper basket. And then we have a whole series of buildings, including like a lighthouse, which could become some sort of wizard's tower if you placed it in a fantasy map, for example, or a silo, a windmill, and just sort of general towers. So, and then we get the kind of outside stuff, the electrical things like a TV tower and a radar. This is, that could become something fantasy quite easily. And then he's got a section, this and that. So we have streams and waterfalls. I worked on my waterfalls a lot from here. A cactus, a bunch of flags, what we would now see as kind of emojis here, but we've got little faces. And then giving some examples of things that you could do with your projects. So I highly recommend this book. This is a list of all of the books that he has, or at least that's all listed in here. And some of them are here on the back. But for general map making, I have found this a great place to start, because it got me into the concept of using simple line drawings, like well placed in a map, to become evocative and to just with very easy like circles and dots create something that gives a feeling for a place or whatever. So that's the Ed Emberley's drawing book, Make a World. That's the if you're going to sort of get all of these, this was where I started in terms of really trying to improve my drawing skills. The next two books I want to recommend are, interestingly, and I didn't know this when I bought them, the Flip Silver Pen. This is J.P. Couvert. I don't know how that's how you pronounce his name, who has a YouTube channel. He actually references Make a World by Ed Emberley, which I didn't know when I bought it, but it does make sense because these books are also, and they are designed specifically for fantasy map making. And he gives you a little introduction here. All great adventurers make their own maps. And he is a really talented artist, and you can watch him do these drawings and other things on his YouTube channel. But these books are kind of in this Ed Emberley mode, which is to show you the shape and the shape that's added and what you can get out of that. And you can see it's very similarly presented to the Make a World book. Obviously fewer, the content is lesser, but it is very useful, and it is more tailored to fantasy map making, like a hill with a little entry or layer in it. And you've got towns and cities and some decorations. And here's another monster in the water. Some examples of borders and some information about doing the sketch. So you see here the sketch that he's got for the Daggerlands map, and on the front here you have the actual map. And it is interesting to kind of look back and forth and see how he develops that, and gives you some information about labelizing, and then labeling and then finalizing with ink. So in my drawings, what the sort of, I guess it's the style that I've ended up developing, basically based on what I have, is I'm using just a combination of uh, just ink and pencil. And these, you might have seen me switching. I don't have any drawing pens. These are the same sort of just gel pens. They have the same tip. I was only switching because like one is sort of dying and broken. So I'm not using anything fantasy, or I'm not using anything fancy here. And I am not using anything that is a gradation of any type of thickness of the ink, which I probably should be. But you can sort of achieve some of that if you don't want to invest in. Here's what I'm looking for to show you. You can achieve, I think, a good amount of differentiation of the length of the line width just by sort of pressure, and also just drawing over something to give it a little bit of depth with just one type of pen, if you don't want to invest in a lot of different types of pens. And that's what I've been doing. And then I kind of shade in certain things with my pencil, and that seems to be how I have just evolved in this project, and kind of what I'm sticking with. I kind of like the way that it looks, and I don't want to be investing a lot of money in art supplies, because this isn't the main thing that I'm doing. It's just a kind of enhancement. But the point being that you can get far with a little. And this, this is what the point is on the video. So there's another one. This is Making Maps More Fantastical, that gives you, these are where the trees came from. I've been practicing those trees, and it's just more of the same. There's not in this one as much. There's the same, well, there's a little more information here, and another map that I think you get a line drawing of, and just kind of more of the same, more lakes, swamps, bogs, fog and mist, working on my sort of wind kind of thing. I like the appearance, or the way that it makes something feel more dynamic in terms of wind. And I haven't done a web yet, but I'd like to do that. You can see it's not as step by step as the Ed Emberley book. So going from here to here to here, that's a pretty big jump. So you have to, and you could see, the same. You have to have a little bit more confidence that you can figure out how to do that without necessarily the step-by-step addition. But here, for example, for this portal, we have a little bit more. He's showing you, if you could see that in the faint lines, what he's adding in each time. So these two books they're sort of charming. I was working on this kind of wind thing too. And I did a sun. I think you saw that, and that's where my ghost came from that I showed you earlier. So I think these two books kind of have the fantasy charm to them. This is more foundational in terms of just, there's so much stuff in here, as you saw, just so much, and it is very adaptable to fantasy. And then the last one that I want to show you, which kind of in a way pulls it all together, or is what I would say my go-to if you're just going to buy one, which is this How to Draw Fantasy Art and RPG Maps, Step-by-Step Cartography for Gamers and Fans by Jared Blando. And I believe this author has many other, or at least some other books as well. There are some here. I only own this one, and it is extremely detailed in terms of what it offers here. It has everything from mountains, forests, and water, town, city icons, typography, landmarks, iconography, heraldry and shields, political boundaries, backgrounds, and various painting techniques, and then a chapter on how to put it all together. The assumption or the presentation is in color throughout, so it's not a line drawing as you saw in, or a black and white drawing as you saw in the Making Maps version. There are things here about materials, both basic and advanced. And I'll just again show you a little bit. There are some degree of step-by-step in this book, and it also just gives you some discussion of concepts of map, like how to balance, or what it means to have like an ocean heavy map versus a balanced map or a land heavy map. And reading about this and thinking about this can really impact decisions you might make about your drawing that can become conscious decisions as opposed to just sort of what ends up happening to something. He also pulls out to give you the instructions for making like more of a world map, something with coastlines. You've seen me, I think, do this or present this in some videos that I've done on other games. And let me see if I can show you one or two. So, for example, this was a map I drew for when I played Against the Wind, and I'm sure I used some of the concepts from this book when I was doing this map, that the map came out of the drawing of the game, but and then these are from the Fantasy Mapmaker series or game that you saw me play, and this one as well. And of course, these came out of the game, so it's not exactly based. I wasn't attempting to do a drawing here. I was attempting to play the game, which is a drawing. But nevertheless, some of the concepts here did inform the decisions about the types of drawings that I made. And you could see here what the steps are. So to do a mountain range, for example, you're given pretty clear steps about how to draw this, and there's also a commentary about it. And this is why I recommend, if you're just going to get one book, this would be the one to get, because it gives not only the very detailed step-by-step directions, but it will explain to you sort of what you're doing and why you're doing it, and how to repeat it, say, to create a mountain range or something like this. And then it will differentiate like mountain range versus the rugged hills, and that versus woodlands and forests. I always seem to have trouble with my forests, different types of trees. It's just, it's much more detailed than the other books that I showed you in terms of explaining why you're making certain decisions and actually how to do those. And then there are like little side boxes here talking about the line pressure to differentiate line thickness. So you get not only the step-by-step directions on what to do, but some general information about drawing overall. And this is basically how it goes. And it takes you through towns, cities, castles, and then talking about typography, which is interesting and can really do a lot to give, again, flavor to something. And I'll show you, I was started to work on my typography on something, put this word haunted here. I wouldn't have had the confidence to do that without sort of reading this book about how to do that, and different examples of type that you can create very simply, and the feeling that it gives. So I think labeling is also something that goes a far way. And the discussion of the reasons behind it is useful here. So why location labels are so important, and how to differentiate them from other types of labels. Like if they're straight, they will signal that it is an important location, versus like in the Haunted Hills, like having the words contour to the landscape, for example. It creates a hierarchy, a visual hierarchy, and understanding that which is something that I didn't do until I read this. Once you do it, it makes intuitive sense. So you could see here, for example, the way that he's labeling the mountains. And here's the haunted forest that I was basing my drawing on. I ran out of room, so I just called it haunted. But I was really trying to follow along here to create that image. And I think it worked out pretty decently. So this book does work as just to read through it, and as well to try to follow along with the drawings. He goes into how to place roads and routes as well, make special locations, troll cairns, a Stonehenge. Talks about designing a monument within your map, and then overall iconography and simple city icons. I think this is also very useful, thinking about if you're doing a bigger map, which I haven't done yet on a full page, being able to have icons, say, for cities and towns if you're pulling back and making that type of map. And also just thinking about, again, the relationship and the scale of what you're actually doing here. So I'll skip ahead here to, again, sea monsters. I think it's the discussion here, and as well as the example of the drawing that makes this book so super useful. The heraldry section is also great. I have another book that talks about this too, and I don't know that that's going to come up again in this video, but adding these types of things, again, can just kind of locate the map. It can kind of give some presence to the map and be suggestive of a story without having to go into the story. And it will allow you as a player to maybe incorporate that narratively into what you're doing. Ditto for these boundary lines that you might create that could suggest different political factions or something like that. And then finally, we talk here about doing border corners. And in the map that I was showing in my drawing, I ended up adding in this very simple border here, mostly because I wasn't super thrilled with the drawing itself, and I thought that would help kind of tighten it up. There's like a looseness about this that doesn't feel right to me, but I thought adding the border would help there. So the border in particular is something that I would not have really thought about how to do corner flourishes without this book, and I think it's very useful. And then finally, there's a section at the end here about different techniques, drawing techniques, pen and brush, inking, and things like that, which I have not paid a whole lot of attention to because I'm just sort of doing what I'm doing. And then there's a section on digital painting, which I don't do either. So that's information there if you want it, or it would be useful to you. And then again, an overall discussion of how he goes about creating a whole fantasy map and the order in which he does this: the general sketch, the coastlines, the hills, the mountains, towns and cities, river, shore, and so on. And this sort of is the model that the book itself is laid out in, but it's all pulled together at the end, and then he shows you the finished ink. So this book overall, I think, How to Draw Fantasy Art and RPG Maps by Jared Blando, is the one that I would recommend if you're only going to get one. It is a little involved though, and if you want to begin somewhere to start to be more comfortable drawing iconography, I really recommend Make a World, because this will give you the comfort, I think, to jump into some of the drawings that are in here. And then somewhere along the way in the middle are these making maps. These are the ones that I actually bought most recently, but so I got pretty far with just these two. The benefit of these is they're both specific to fantasy world, as is this one, but they're much more manageable in terms of not having so much overwhelming information, kind of like this one. So they're sort of a middle ground in a way. So these are the 4 things that I recommend in terms of really making a visual representation of a world into which you might send your characters, or into which you might send a story. And then the last thing I want to talk about is a series of books, Realm Fables. I've mentioned these in another video. These are the World Generator, 2 volumes, and then the Miscellany. That is just a collection of tools and tables from Shield Dice Studio. And these books can offer, they are just random tables, but they are designed to provide information and background for landmarks and lore of a setting. And there are, in fact, in the first one, even some ways of using poker cards to make have world map prompts. So you can just pull a card and get suggestions for maps depending on whether you get various suits. So the clubs are wilderness, the diamonds are magical places, and you can just very easily, with a randomized deck of cards, get the suggestion of what type of area you might have. And then you can use some ways to place them out and make the suggestion of the map and go from there. But beyond that, there are just the random tables. So you can get some NPCs, you can get weapons, you can have names or types of different figures to worship, what the origin of your world is. Again, this is just ancillary to the drawing of the map. But if you want suggestions for labeling your you make a university or a university town, and you can get some random suggestions for labels or legends. Volume 2 gives more information about locations, city names, town names, the appearance, a tavern name. Goes into dungeons and making a dungeon, which is obviously more detailed, and it gives you items for the various parts of the city, of the world. But even pulling out an item, say a forest item, and like pulling it out with a label can add flavor and background to your map. And there's a structure here for understanding what you might put into a world: nations, factions, languages, types of the history, written, oral, the truth, the lies, etc. This is obviously way bigger than a map, but it goes hand in hand with developing a play out of a map. If you're starting your play with the physical drawing, how do you actually play in that world? What are some of the rules of that? And it gives you a suggestion of doing this with D6s. So you can roll your D6s and then come up with various things: settlements, flatlands, dungeons, and then place that out to make the map. So these are just some kind of broader based, I guess is the word for it, random tables, but it also gets into the details and gives you names and just flavor text that you can use to add on to the map and make it a little deeper and give you some suggestions for ways to play within that. And then the final one that I have here is just miscellany. So it will give you things like, it focuses on libraries or roadside events or things, maybe a little too detailed for the kind of broader map that we were discussing drawing, but it is with this other pair of books. And obviously there's a lot of world generator books out there, but these are just some that have a nice variety of broad and specific that I find useful to pair with my map making. So that is a look inside what I've been doing with map making and drawing, and how I'm using that to be a starting point for certain games and overall enhance the gameplay and just provide a visual element that I create into my gameplay and have this be an anchor point for creating the stories and generating the games that I'm playing. All right, so I thought it would be fun as I have my morning iced coffee, just as a little bonus, to sit here and do a little bit of a drawing. I'm not going to film the whole thing because that's too much for me right now. But I'm going to pull some cards, and we're going to just lay them out as per the direction. Let me get some, hopefully get some different card. Oh, they're all red here. All right, let's hope for a black. Here we go. All right, so what we're going to do is I'm just going to pull these cards here, and per the book, that the Realm Fables book that I just showed you, we're going to take a look and see what we get, and then I will draw that out, and I'll make a little map from it. So the Eight of Hearts is going to be some castles up there. We got a Six of Diamonds. That's going to be, abandoned mines. King of Diamonds, a cursed region. And the Four of Hearts is going to be villages and farmland. So we got villages and farmland here by the castle. And then, sorry, this is a bit rough. All right, we got the Seven of Clubs. That's a desert. The Four of Clubs is a forest. And the King of Clubs is going to be a fungal region. And then down here, the last one, we'll make it down here. We got the Jack of Hearts, and the Jack of Hearts is going to be a university region. Okay, so based on this, I'm going to, based on this and what I showed you in the earlier part of the videos, I'm going to sketch something out. So one of the first things you want to do when you're doing a drawing is choose the right paper size and stuff. So for this, I'm going to go with the condensed Dungeon Year Design Journal, which just gives me the sort of one-page thing. I know I want to do a border because I'm still working on my borders, and I am going to choose. So here's an example of something I was playing and working on, but this isn't a dungeon. This is going to be a world map. So I'm going to draw it on here, and I'm going to sketch out, based on this rough kind of outline, the shape of the world. All right, so the next stage doesn't look that great, and I think this is where you can, if you're a beginner like I am, you can sort of get intimidated and think like this is never going to amount to anything. But I sketched out the shape here. I decided I wanted to make this, I can't remember what this was, but I wanted to make that sort of like an island, just to have I wanted to practice some islands and see what that could look like. And then I'm going to make it like a rough sort of parchment-y kind of thing. And I noticed, I wasn't paying too much attention, but I noticed I really like what happened there. So I'm going to make sure that I develop that into something cool, and have it ultimately look like a parchment. And now I need to note down, sort of on a separate piece of paper, because I don't want to draw it on here, what these things are supposed to be. And then I'll go about actually drawing them. Okay, so continuing along, you can see this, just disregard this. I've kind of sketched out what these things are. And the castles, and so we've got the castles, the abandoned mines, and the cursed region, and the fungal region. Those kind of, these things sort of in my mind go together to some extent. Not so interesting desert, forests at the edge, and then I decided this island is going to be a university region or something. So looking at it visually to develop it, we can sort of see that there's going to be developed things or structures on either side of it that could end up looking kind of cool and balanced and maybe relate to each other in some way. But this is the next step of where we are. Okay, next up, I decided to start with my castle, and my concept here is I like it when the stuff pops out of the map a little bit. So that's what I'm trying to go for here. I had to keep readjusting this coastline. I don't know how that's going to work out, but so there's my little castle area, and I think the next thing I'm going to go for is let's see. I don't know. I don't know how to draw an abandoned mine, so maybe we'll do whatever we decide with the cursed region. I have some ideas about doing like maybe like deep sort of circular things going into the fungal region. I think I can draw some kind of mushrooms and fungus here. So next up I'm going to kind of work on this area. Okay, this is the interim drawing, and I just had to go ahead and do stuff, and as I continued to do it, it got less good. But anyway, this is my kind of abandoned mines, fungal area. I can't remember what that was supposed to be, something decrepit. And then I was supposed to have some farmland here. I realized I made my whole thing kind of too big, so I started to sketch in some mountains because I can generally do mountains okay. They don't look great here, but I think they're going to look better when I finish them. Then I wanted to make it look a little more fantasy-like, so I just stuck in some like entrances or layers. The village is pretty poor, but there it is. And I'm not doing the desert. This was my forest. I've struggled with trees in the past, but I think that's like okay. And then for the university island, I kind of really scaled back, and I think I'm going to maybe make this even smaller. So one lesson I'm learning is like just I went bigger, but I think I went too big. So I think I'm still better off doing something a little more compact, but this is where we are at the moment. And I think I'm going to start in now, maybe with some of the pen work and kind of tighten it up as I go with that. So here's the map at the next stage, and it's probably the last thing I'm going to show you in this video. I am going to end up doing the border and probably putting in a little more shading, but I've just been doing some shading to try to develop some more dimensionality into the map. I added a little monster here, and it's it's looking okay. I mean, I think this is representative of what I'm trying to convey in this video, which is that you can learn to draw decent maps and your skills will improve. Like that forest is definitely better than other forests I've been drawing for sure. And maybe the monster is the same. I don't know. There's going to be irregularity in this. I'm happier, like I said, with this. I think this turned out pretty cool. The abandoned mines and the kind of fungal area and mysterious area here with the castles. But yeah, I've drawn better mountains actually, and definitely I kind of gave up on the village. But hey, that's like the reality of drawing maps if you're not actually an artist. And so I hope that this video has given you insight into what you can actually do without really being an artist, and give you a little confidence to try it out for yourself.